this.
True, sir.
देखिए, see, as far as historicity of the social design of movement is concerned, there is fair amount of evidence and traces for that. Whether you start from very early times, Neolithic times, or even much earlier when human beings were engaging with rock paintings, or you see other ways of graffitis by which they expressed uh, what Swapnil said about strategizing to bring change. These strategies are visible in the visuals of the traces and evidences which are found historically. This is one side of the coin, but the other side of the coin is they have not been studied keeping social design in mind. For example, symbolisms which were adapted during Mughal period. Use of elephant, use of horses, depicting emperor as playing Holi or participating in Diwali, or Tansen, symbolism about Tansen singing something. All these are part and parcel of a deeper strategy of social design. These are not just innocent representation of, or these are not some figment of imagination which is just. They have emerged as a strategy of social cohesion. They have emerged as message of social strife. And they have been remains whether we read them from their various contexts or not. Right? This is something which historians, literatures, and sociologists have not done actually. More so in the Indian context. We have been consumers of museums and we have been consumers of various kinds of symbolism, but without reading the strategizing part which is embedded in it. Right? So, my take on this would be that we need to revisit and reread the symbolism of Indian art in a different way, keeping the strategy behind those aspirations, those anticipated goals and aspirations in mind. I hope I'm making some sense.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
clear
yeah, yeah.
to say.
In further discussion, we will surely discuss which type of symbolism, maybe the focus of some of the areas, which type of symbolism we will rethink about that and rewrite about that. In continuation of that, I am requesting to Dr. Bhuvokar, sir, please explore your views in continuation of that.
Yeah, I think I would just add to what my friend Dr. Dhruv was talking about, especially when I think preamble of the Constitution, symbolizes the dreams and aspirations of this great nation, and especially, the kind of nation the constitution makers or writers envisioned. You know. So if I think of the social designs, or if I look at the kind of policies that we make, still might be limited to certain classes, certain castes, and certain categories, and But I think we we haven't been able to create a kind of social design whereby uh, everybody can feel that uh, you know I belong to this country. It is we the people of India. So I think that is making, when we talk about how the social and political movements are relevant to social designs. I think social designs in that way definitely relevant. I think we need to still create certain kind of policies, certain kind of social designs, which can be inclusive, as Sapnil, my friend, was also talking about Me Too movement and Black, including even the disabilities, disability studies or transgender, you know how they can be also be included in the policies. For example, when uh, le- you go to any public institute, maybe off late we are making the infrastructure disabled friendly. Otherwise, the design of the architecture, if you see, we haven't put the disabled people in the mind. Hardly any public institute or public spaces that you would see. So that was never in the mind of the architecture. Look at our imagination hasn't reached there. The hospitals, and so the college where I teach, we of course, many colleges in OBC expansion, lot of fund came, whereby one important policy was to make the infrastructure disabled friendly. Still, many of the institutes are yet to develop that. Then how many colleges or universities are accessible to the visually impaired people? The library, how rich is the library? So I think many times our social designing or social imagination perhaps is yet to reach to these things. I'm so happy to that to 2023 we United Nations has declared this as international international millet year. Millet year. So why I am just bringing this, just trying to problematize this whole idea. This was millet for a long time. Traditionally it has been seen as poor man's food. Poor man's food. But so it was considered as poor man's food. It was never, but now you would see that millet is available at big malls, because perhaps now I think now eating millet has become a kind of dignified food, you know so that now it is entering into the social imagination of the people. Earlier that food has had remained a kind of untouchable. If somebody in the urban spaces or maybe middle class people, forget about the rich, if they could never think of eating millet or any coarse food for that matter. But now I think it's really good. It's good that it is happening. At least now you see bread is coming off millet, and there are many other uh, food where they are including this millet and the kind of grains, cereals that are. So I think that is creating a kind of definitely creating a kind of movement even in the culinary social design, I should say. I think there are several like this which are yet to be incorporated, or maybe can touch to the imagination, our imagination or our vision, whereby we can make this country an egalitarian country, and where everybody would feel I am part of this we. I also is inside that we. In When I say this, their art, their culture, their food, their what to say. Social life, and educational aspirations can be included, incorporated, and can touch the social imagination of the masses. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and very well some of the examples given by you. And I'm just thinking about that before the colonial period, hopefully we have all used a lots of millet and other related things in the Indian tradition or maybe the Mughal periods also, because as per the history or some of the evidence already shown in the Guru Shishya Parampara, hopefully these types of midday meal type of culture via the millet maybe already or was there. But somehow after some years, no problem that because of the political willpower, we have again facing our good face of the Indian culture through the food and all other things. In continuation of that, I'm requesting to Dr. Swapnil Singh, if possible, please explore some of the inputs from your views in continuation of this question and conversation. Ma'am, please.
So the social design and the relation of political movements in India has a long and complex history, because when we talk about the different approaches or different methods used in social design, one of the method is also about storytelling and narratives. So storytelling and narratives becomes an important element and important part of how we progress towards the future. For example, we give examples of how Mahatma Gandhi used the non-violent method to achieve the goal, and how the struggle was promoted, or how the struggle took place. So the importance of storytelling and narratives plays an important role, or it becomes significant when we talk about how the social design and political movements are related in Indian context. And also there are as according to me, what I understand social design and the relation of social and political movement is, there are two different social designs, that is traditional social design and modern or contemporary social design, where traditional social design or social design methods included protest, petition, demands in the form of demonstrations, or maybe boycott or civil disobedience movement. The methods they used were traditional in their approaches, and actually they help them to achieve the designated goal. But moving on to contemporary or the recent or the new social design methods, we have digital tools, social media platforms, we have guerrilla marketing methods, we have flash mob methods, where people actually come together to deliver the same message which was delivered in a different way while using the traditional methods of social design. So, speaking from a historical or sociological perspective, right from the Swadeshi movement, which started in the 1905, it also had a social design in terms of using only the homemade products or boycotting the products that were coming from outside. So it had a social design which asked the people or the masses to boycott certain products or the items that were not produced or not manufactured within the country. So the movement was not only aimed to promote economic self-sufficiency, but also aimed to preserve the cultural heritage of Indian society. And then we can talk about green revolution or the agricultural movement we had in India, or also the some of the recent movements in like Swachh Bharat Abhiyan or the Smart Cities Mission, which also talks about the sustainable development and addresses these goals. So actually, all of these movements are having a particular kind of social design which help them to strategize and build on what their ideology talks about, and how they will reach their goals depends on the strategies that are designed by the methods and approaches they have introduced in the planning process.
Thank you, ma'am, for your input, and it will surely help to a lot of us. And right now, I'm interested to again go to the group, sir. Sir, if possible, you just mentioned that in before that rewrite the symbolism in Indian art. That is a very important topic for that, and it is totally relevant to our political scenario or maybe the whatever the genre on that time there. So if you explore something more in a little minor level, then we will try to write down the things in this overall conversation to have a focus on which type of rewrite or revisit the symbolism things, and it will if it will be related with the political.
Thank you. Thank you. I am just taking clue from what other panelists are stating before me. Just now, Swapnil was kind enough to remind me of Swadeshi movement, where you were boycotting goods, foreign goods, and you created a particular kind of symbolism for it. Khadi was one form, charkha was became a very powerful symbol, not of just protest, but of a way of life and a way of production and a means of production, along with the political message which was inbuilt in it. This is one aspect of the story, and Swapnil quite correctly hinted at that. But there are many other aspects of the story of strategizing. For example, like Swadeshi products, you also imbibe foreign products through the same strategies, right? For example, tea became a part and parcel of a life, is part and parcel of a life. If Prabhakar doesn't treat me with a cup of tea when I visit his college, he would be discourteous to me. I would take huge offense of it. But the point is, this tea was not something which was part of a culture. Tree plant came from China. It was acclimatized to Indian conditions. All that is there. But as a part and parcel of our cultural existence, as a cultural drink, as a national drink, long ago, Historian Gautam Bhadra wrote a small monograph on how tea became from a Biresi to Desi drink, from an British to a national drink. But you go to even a small village or a signal point of a railway station, even if you don't get a medicine shop, but you are likely to get a tea shop somewhere. Right? And the way tea was acclimatized, lemon tea, right? This is all Indian ways of acclimatizing tea. है ना? And it remained, it is a symbolism of modernity. It is part of our modern existence. So something which was very, very dear to the Britishers, and they fought many wars to get the bottlenecks from tea trade cleared. From China, it came to India, and from India, it went to Europe, etc., etc. But I'm just giving one example of a commodity. So you strategized through your social design and acclimatized a foreign facet and made it your own, right? So social design is also about how you assimilate values, how you assimilate. He was talking of millet, so how you assimilate culinary aspects, how you assimilate ideas. I can see one historian of ideas listening to us. So you assimilate history of ideas through social design. There are certain contexts, there are certain phases in which certain ideas get received and certain very valuable ideas get rejected. So Swadeshi movement might have created a huge clientele of Swadeshi products, but the same movement, uh, after 10 years, when it fizzled out in some sense, also allowed greater engagement with foreign products and their assimilation, and the strategic assimilation in such a way that they became national products. Right? Tea was just one example. Gandhi used salt. Salt was the most ubiquitously taxed commodity. But then salt also emerged as a commodity of protest, but also a commodity which was used in different ways. I have seen old advertisements of tea, just to share with you how things get assimilated. Old advertisements of tea in old newspapers, where Indian maestros, before performing their alaps, the ragas, there is a cup of tea kept there and Lipton is written there. So if you have 4 5 sips of tea, maybe you would perform better and your voice would be more sonorous and more acceptable and would be received better. So this is there are many subtle ways of strategizing in built within social design, which helps us to receive ideas, to receive commodities, to assimilate them, and then claim them as our own. We have done that. All of us in crisis use bread. Bread in Hindi is roti. A roti could not be commoditized. So many roti makers came, but they couldn't pack and make it at the level of bread which you get the packed bread. That is a British legacy. It is our own. We call it pav roti. We have added something which was a snide remark 100 years ago is not no longer so. Pav roti hinted at it is, we used to get that when we had fever or thinara road ka biscuit or pav roti. ये तो तब मिलता था जब बुखार लग जाता था. We had fever. So pav roti was something to be despised, but it has become part and parcel of life. So some of these subtle processes by which we strategize. I love this word strategizing, and redefining and reconfiguring the social design mechanism to make things national. And ये जुगाड़ टेक्नोलॉजी से ऊपर का है relation of technology. You assimilate different things, then you claim it as your own. So my take is that we should probe these aspects deeper.
Thank you for this, your elaborated words, sir. And in the last, you said the Jugaad, and as per my understanding, because I am working on that field innovation from the last 5 to 7 years, and Jugaad is I find out that one of the best social design aspects in any condition, in anywhere. Thank you for these your words. And I also welcome Dr. Priyanka Jha, ma'am. She joined just right now. Ma'am, in between that, if you are interested also to incorporate any of your comments, you are also most welcome that. In continuation of our last two questions, I'm just realizing that my third point is that in between, after this conversation, how has social design been used to support social and political movements throughout history? If anyone from you start from this point, then we have some type of discussion and find out something. How has social design been used to support social and political movement throughout history? So if right now I'm requesting to Dr. Swapnil ma'am, if possible, please start this session uh, from your point of view, and then we'll continue for that.
Okay, so since we have talked about different social and political movements, which we generally study in historical textbooks and our history syllabus, so I would just like to mention one point related to Indian ecofeminism, which is both a social and political movement, and it talks about the interconnected issues of gender equality, environmental degradation, and social justice. So there, the social design which is deeply embedded in ecofeminism or Indian ecofeminism is that it talks about the intersectionality aspect, that is intersection of gender equality and environmental degradation, and then it talks about the grassroots level activism. The best example is Chipko movement or different movements which we have had in India. And then the traditional social design method or approach, that is non-violent resistance. And the fourth one is advocacy to raise awareness or to frame policies or eco-friendly policies, which are actually in demand right now when we are talking about sustainable development goals. So this is something which I feel that it is both a social and political movement which addresses number of issues together, and the design is such that it raises different issues related to number of interconnected aspects.
Dr. Bhavukar, sir, in continuation of these topics, you will explore something more in relevant with the support social and political movement throughout history. If you have some type of chronology, then it will help to us.
Yeah, I think would I mean she has already touched, and for to some extent I think we have already touched several aspects. I would just try to highlight on the Dalit movement. Dalit movement. Uh, Basically, the ex-untouchables were variously and maybe pejoratively called in different ways, derogatory words, including the word untouchable, and later on how they through their social movements, how they come to understand that I think they coined the word Dalit, or maybe, I think popularized the word Dalit. And politically, that word Dalit becomes a symbol, So people could connect because in that word, it does not signify the caste that they belong to. Rather, it's a kind of a protest. Though in that word, the word Dalit, there is a protest, and basically the word talks about how people have been, Dalitized rather by the system or by the external factors. you know I think so they could relate with that movement, and the word Dalit becomes acceptable to the marginalized people. And of course, Dalit Panther movement, defines the word Dalit in a very broader, perspective, where it tries to accommodate or tries to incorporate all the marginalized people, including women. And so I think so. I really feel that you can see there is a journey from the untouchable to associate themselves as the word Dalit, and Dalit still not a what to say final word which represents all these marginalized communities. And of course, for some time there is a debate. Maybe in academically it is acceptable, and because the word is not found in constitution, whether this can be even removed and so on. But I think it has it has touched the all the marginalized communities uh, to so much, even emotionally they are connected with that. They find this is more of a kind of assertion, and there is protest, and also there is a creating an identity for themselves. So I think that word Dalit also historically it has evolved so much. So that I wanted to add. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. In continuation of last two discussions from the Dr. Swapnil Singh and Dr. Puvokar, sir, now I'm requesting to Dr. Dhruv Singh, sir. Sir, please explore something in continuation of that. And after that, I'm requesting to Dr. Priyanka, ma'am, if possible, please give your opinion also that.
You can reverse the order also. I would grant our guest place before me, and she
Yeah, yeah.
can
No problem.
intervene,
Ma'am, please.
and then I can continue from where she.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I've been listening to this right from the beginning. There was some problem in the camera of my computer, so therefore I had to switch to my mobile, and therefore from Priyanka I became Priyanka Jha. But very interesting conversation, very interesting discussion about social design. मेरा ये कहना है कि मेरा ये मानना है कि जो सोशल डिजाइन है उसको ऑल्टर करने के लिए ये जो रिलेशनशिप है मूवमेंट्स का, चाहे वो सामाजिक मूवमेंट हो या राजनीतिक मूवमेंट्स हो, सोशल पॉलिटिकल मूवमेंट्स ऑफ एनी काइंड, दे हैव बीन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इन टर्म्स ऑफ द ऑल्टरेशन ऑफ द सोशल डिजाइन. काफी अगर हम बुद्धिज्म को देखें तो बुद्धिज्म की शुरुआत एक एक तरीके के प्रोटेस्ट से हो रही है. ये जो श्रामनिक ट्रेडिशन आ रहे हैं वो उस समय के सोशल डिजाइन को ऑल्टर करने के लिए बहुत प्राथमिक प्रश्न उठा रहे हैं. और मैं महिला आंदोलन को लाना चाहूंगी कंटेम्पररी टाइम्स में. द नेचर ऑफ द सोसाइटी, द नेचर ऑफ द इनइक्वालिटीज इन द सोसाइटी that framed the existence of the women, the question of gender, was significantly altered by the movement. तो दोनों का रिलेशनशिप बहुत क्लोज है. सोशल मूवमेंट एक प्रकार के हैं तो उसको बदलाव के लिए आपको आंदोलन चाहिए, और काफी बारी आंदोलन आते हैं उस बदलाव को लाने के लिए. जैसे प्रवॉकर सर ने बहुत सारे इंपॉर्टेंट, मतलब ध्रुव सर, प्रवॉकर सर और स्वप्निल तीनों ने बहुत महत्वपूर्ण एलिमेंट्स दिए हैं इन बहुत important perspectives दिए हैं that how is it that these movements are altering the social design, and especially in societies or during times जब एक तरीके का हम देखते हैं कि स्टेट बहुत पावरफुल हो जाता है. जब भी स्टेट पावरफुल हुआ है और एक तरीके का सोशल डिजाइन आया, मैं डेमोक्रेसी के फ्रेमवर्क में बोलना चाहूंगी, अधिकार के फ्रेमवर्क में बोलना चाहूंगी, कि जब भी इसमें किसी भी प्रकार की जटिलता आई है तो उसके बचाव में सोशल मूवमेंट्स आए हैं. और काफी सारी चीजें जो स्टेट नहीं देख पाती है या तो उसका मार्गदर्शन तो फिर नागरिक समाज करता है. व्हाट इज सोशल मूवमेंट्स आर लेड बाय सिविल सोसाइटी. मी, यू, एवरीवन, वी ऑल आर पार्ट ऑफ दिस ऑफ द सिविल सोसाइटी. और एक और चीज जो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, जो हम बात कर रहे थे फ्रॉम अनटचेबल टू दलित वाली जो जर्नी है, या स्वप्निल जो इको फेमिनिज्म की बात कह रही है, वो पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ प्रेजेंस की बात है. क्योंकि काफी इसी सोशल डिजाइन में एक्सक्लूजन्स रहे. there have been so many exclusions of various kinds, and therefore to talk about, I would want to bring Anne Phillips' argument about politics of presence. And this politics of presence has been posed by social movements, political movements, ecological movements. So the best guarantee for the social design to be equitable, to be egalitarian, to be socially just, it will be, the social movements therefore become very foundational in doing that. और हमको एक और चीज देखना है कि कितना सोशल डिजाइन बदला है थैंक्स टू द मूवमेंट. पुराने सोशल मूवमेंट्स, नए सोशल मूवमेंट्स, तो सोशल मूवमेंट्स, पॉलिटिकल मूवमेंट्स की बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट भूमिका है. और विमेन्स मूवमेंट को तो मैं बहुत ही सिग्निफिकेंट तरीके से मानती हूँ. मैं एक बात ध्रुव सर रखना चाहूंगी, जिसपे मैं आपके कमेंट्स भी चाहूंगी, कि ये जो पॉलिटिक्स का प्रेजेंस, ये जो पूरा का पूरा हमारा आर्काइव्स है, और हम ये जो एग्जीबिशन आपके नेतृत्व में, अब जो ये एग्जीबिशन शुरू हुआ है, वो हम बीएचयू के आपके नेतृत्व में एक इतिहास हम बता रहे हैं लोगों को कि बीएचयू का इतिहास कहाँ रहा है. अब उस इतिहास में हमको एक तरीके से पता चला कि बीएचयू का ये इतिहास रहा है, मगर काफी सारे नए एक्टर्स अब हमारे सीन में आ रहे हैं. जैसे देयर इज अ न्यू पैनल नाउ ऑन भगवान दास and his role. There's a new panel on Annie Besant. So now the whole think of the symbolism, to have them amidst us, to have them on the walls, to have them around us, in order for us to start a conversation about these neglected thinkers, leaders. So politics of presence becomes so important, and social movement has been very successfully doing that. और आर्ट हिस्ट्री की बात मैं करना चाहूंगी, बिकॉज आई हैव डन माय पीएचडी ऑन आनंद कुमारस्वामी, हु आल्सो हैज द legitimacy as being one of the country's art historians. So he says कि देखिए, आप इतिहास में कुछ लिखेंगे, एक तरीके से इतिहास बताएंगे, मगर आर्ट हिस्ट्री में आप आर्ट हिस्ट्री के द्वारा आप झुटला नहीं सकते हैं, क्योंकि जो है कंट्रीब्यूशन वो तो है. अगर हम एक तरीके से भारत के इतिहास को समझाते हैं अपने टेक्स्ट बुक से, तो वो एक तरीके का इतिहास हमारे पास आ रहा है. बट व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट सिंबल्स, और व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट आर्किटेक्चर, व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट all these forms which have been there, how can you deny that? how आप उसको कैसे झुटलाएंगे? तो आर्ट हिस्टोरियन का जो दायित्व है सिंबल्स को हमारे बीच में रखने के लिए, या सिंबल्स के द्वारा इतिहास को समझाने के लिए, वो बड़ा ही एक इंक्लूसिव और बड़ा ही इंपॉर्टेंट प्रोजेक्ट है. तो उस तरीके से तो आप नहीं झुटला सकते हैं. तो ये मेरे 2-3 सबमिशंस हैं, एंड आई एम रियली एंजॉयिंग. बहुत लंबे समय के बाद बहुत मजेदार कॉन्वर्सेशन सुनने को आ रहा है. मनीष सर, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर ऑर्गेनाइजिंग दिस, एंड द पैनलिस्ट, इट्स रियली अ जॉय to listen to all of you at 5 p.m. in the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your wonderful input and insight. Now I'm requesting to Dhruv sir, please continue after that.
Sir and madam, thing is, देखिए, there is a design involved in creating any durable entity. Design is a strategy to impart some merit to any entity, be it a political entity, be it a social entity, social movement. last 100 years have been a century of nation states. Nation states, largely in our part of the world, emerged from decolonization. In the process of decolonization, they presented a social design that they would create an equitable society, they would create an inclusive society, they would provide bread and butter to every citizen. There would be a lowest minimum factor for every citizen to partake into, etc., etc. Now, when that nation state came into being, incorporating all your aspirations, as Prabhakar said, in a written document of constitution, then there were instances, contexts, cases of miscarriages, and then redefinition of those same goals and aspirations in a different way. Now that aplomb and that earlier idealism gave way to competitive, collaborative, representational, revengeous political contours. Now, when these things emerge, then you have to revisit the same strategies of social design, and you have to re-strategize those designs. You have to reinvest those symbols with new meanings, and you have to recast them before the public, if you wish to say civil society, if you wish to say society generally. Terms can differ, but so this process is a continuous dialectic process. Now, elections are, that's why I started with those symbolism, political symbolism of hand and palm and thumb and elephant and cycle. And so these political symbols are representation of those very phenomena, processes, both positive and negative, which I mentioned. For me, as a student of history, the more intensities, the more discordant it is, the more better for the health of a society. Because then more would be the possibility of inclusivity, the more inclusive you. So if something is delayed because of debate, then it is not a negative thing as far as development is concerned. Because if something is delayed and well debated and then realized, I think it would be more inclusive. So, as a student of history, my notion and understanding of time and the way things move within society, I think the more we unravel the meaning invested into many of these aspects. You see, a symbol is also a crystallization of identity. Priyanka has mentioned the politics of presence. A symbol is the first statement of the politics of presence. As I said, when we pass through a village, a bus, we see various symbols on the walls, mud walls hanging from the trees, and they tell us which political dispensation they belong to, which political dispensation is active in that area, etc., etc. The state also does that. You know, Beti Bachao Abhiyan, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. These are, after all, campaigns. And they need to be strategized and re strategized continuously. So for me, as you all have asked me to do, for me, the more we talk about these strategies within our curriculum, the more we will be preparing our next generation for the debates which would, for the challenges for which they will have to debate. First, they have to understand those challenges, debate on those challenges, and debate the challenges, and then only they can move ahead. So, I think we should not be perturbed or disturbed by the fact that we are not progressing very fast. We should rather understand that if a slower speed can mean a more sturdier and more sustainable progress and a more inclusive progress, that choice would be better for the populous and diverse society to which we belong. I hope I could grasp what all of you had to say in some sense and to re-articulate it before you for.
Perfect, perfect, sir, perfect. In continuation of that, if any one of you is interested to incorporate some points, that will be good for us. Otherwise, we will go for the next point.
Can I
Sir?
just quickly come in? Sorry.
Yes, please.
Yeah, please.
I remember for the longest time as a student of political science, जब किसी भी शहर में जाते थे तो उस शहर की राजनीतिक आबो हवा वहां के दीवारों से पता चल जाती थी कि मुद्दे क्या चल रहे हैं। मुझे याद है, मतलब दूसरे लैंग्वेजेस में, मतलब अपने अपने लैंग्वेज में लिखते थे कि यहाँ डरना है या उस चीज को लेके प्रोटेस्ट है। तो ये जो दीवार रहे हैं शहरों के, जो राजनीतिक मूवमेंट के भागीदारी में साथ चले हैं, क्योंकि अगर आपको अब तो सोशल मीडिया का जमाना आ गया है, पर पहले सोशल मीडिया का काम कर रहे थे ये दीवार। स्पेशली ट्रेन स्टेशन, जैसे आप स्टेशन के बाहर निकलते हैं तो आपको एक सेंस पता चल जाती है कि चल क्या रहा है, यहाँ पे किस पार्टी का सीन चल रहा है, कितने आपको सिंबल्स दिखेंगे एक पर्टिकुलर पार्टी के। तो फॉर अस अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग साइट, हमारे इंपेरिकल स्टडीज में जो लोग काम कर रहे थे मे बी वोटिंग पे या पार्टिसिपेशन पे, तो बहुत कुछ पता चलता था इन शहरों की दीवारों के द्वारा। आई थिंक बनारस में भी बहुत कुछ अभी भी पता चल जाएगा। अब बहुत सुंदर सुंदर हम लोग कलाकृतियां, a lot of beautiful paintings have come onto the walls of Banaras, but the health of a city or health of a town, the political health or the nature of political questions was something which were on these walls. और जिस बात से मैं अपनी बात खत्म करना चाहूंगी कि जब इंडिया इंडिपेंडेंट हो रहा था, there's a very beautiful there's a lot of research जो हुआ है कि इंडिया जब नया इंडिपेंडेंट हुआ था तो इंडिपेंडेंट इंडिया के क्या सिंबल्स थे, क्योंकि बुद्धिज्म पे काम था तो काफी कुछ लिखा गया था कि कौन कौन से ऐसे बुद्धिस्ट सिंबल्स थे जो हमारे नेशनल सिंबल्स बने। What was the message that India as a post-colonial, newly independent country giving to the world? और एक जो आपको फीलिंग बहुत स्ट्रांगली निकल के आती है इज द स्ट्रॉन्ग क्रेडेंशियल ऑफ बीइंग अ सेक्युलर कंट्री, बिकॉज पंडित नेहरू and the cabinet and all the people who were involved, और यहाँ मैं कमला देवी को लाना चाहूंगी बिकॉज कमला देवी ने बहुत कुछ हैंडीक्राफ्ट्स के रिवाइवल के लिए काम किया था और काफी नए सिंबल्स जो भारत के थे वो एक्चुअली पुराने सिंबल्स थे। बट हमको ये समझना पड़ेगा उस समय के आइडियाज को समझने के लिए, उस समय के विजन को समझने के लिए कि कौन से ऐसे सिंबल थे, अशोक स्तंभ क्यों, चरखा क्यों नहीं। और ये आई थिंक ये आंसर प्रभाकर सर भी, स्वप्निल और मैं ध्रुव सर से पूछना चाहूंगी कि हम उस समय से व्हाट इज इट दैट वी इन्फर फ्रॉम द पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ सिंबल एंड द चॉइसेस दैट this newly independent country made and giving it out to the world, that why did we go for the 4 lions, why did we go for the Ashok lion which still bears the Indian nationality on the passport. So the politics of symbol and its role in social design is something that I wanted to bring your attention to.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for this conversation right now. And now I'm going on my second point. The question is raised in the mind of us or in the think tank of this project. What are the some of the key projects and outcomes of these efforts, and how it has changed the society? If you explain something more about that, maybe Dr. Swapnil start from that, and it will support us.
Okay, talking about the outcomes or the key benefits of how social design is implemented or was implemented in Indian politics, I'd like to say here is that the impact of social design in Indian politics is huge in terms of how the power was distributed and how it is exercised, how the quality of governance and the public service, the delivery of public services takes place in Indian context. So, for example, we can talk about the affirmative action that was done to address the historical injustice that was there in our society. Then the electoral system and the processes, that is the distribution of political power and the representation of different sections of a society. Moving forward, when we talk about the digital literacy or the digital technology, the usage of digital technology in the delivery of public services, it has both advantages and disadvantages in terms of people who do not have access to digital devices or resources, they are left behind. But the usage of digital technology in the delivery of public services, so the design process, which actually takes cognizance of the fact that including technology for the delivery of public services is the need of the hour, and how different policies and different government acts, for example, if we talk about Manrega or we talk about right to education that came in 2009. So a specific kind of social design was behind launching of such acts, that the requirement of the masses was to have some certain amount of daily wages for people who were not employed anywhere, or the right to education, the necessity of including such right for the people, for the sections of a society who were not able to get the quality education. So the social design in Indian society, in social context, in political context, has always been there, and there are different ways in which these designs and the methods have been implemented in Indian society. So this is what I feel that the importance of social design is there in Indian politics.
I'm requesting to Prabhupada sir, please explore something more about that.
Yeah. Thank you, Swapnil. I think Swapnil has very nicely, covered and touched the points. So I would, I think, after listening to Priyanka ma'am and the politics of presence, so my fear is sometimes the social designs or the symbolisms, the symbols that are used can also fall into just just be the tokenism, kind of tokenism. Just give, even let us just talk about Swachh Abhiyan, Swachhata Abhiyan. So how they are being implemented, I think, and how far we have, sometimes I see even in Delhi. Sometimes by the time I come back from my college, and that's the time the school kids also go by their school vans, and they will have bought some chips, and just they would eat and just throw outside their the school van without any guilt, without any kind of guilt. So I wonder whether the teachers are addressing this issue or not, swachhata, whether we are really talking about, whether we are serious about that or not. sometimes I have also noticed that when I think sometime when Modi Modi ji declared this Swachhata Abhiyan, immediately it became more of a selfie and more of just to hold the broom, broom and take a picture, and you can just put it on Facebook or maybe on the college website, and so sometimes it can just be limited to the tokenism, why we have, so maybe or just to gain some political mileage, or how are we really serious about uh, creating certain social designs whereby we implement to the letter and spirit. That is, I think, very, very important. Even about the uh, I think the Pradhan Mantri Abbas Yojana, you go to the houses that are being built in rural areas, you know so half of it is eaten by the you know the bureaucrats and the people. I don't know whether it's the right forum to talk. But then they, and with that meager amount, they have to make their houses. So what kind of house one would make, that is then when I go to Odisha, I'm from Odisha. So when I go to Odisha, at least in Bhubaneswar, all the walls, the city walls, you would see the tribal arts, tribal art everywhere, you know. So I find it just a, tokenism, that symbol, as if that symbol stands for Odisha and the spirit of Odisha and culture and the aspirations of people. If you talk about the demographic dividends, it's almost half of the and the population of Odisha, constitutes the tribals and Dalits together. But and their conditions remain same, you know, all the time, and but they have become all the time whenever there is some big program. Now we had hockey, Olympic. All this tribal art and their culture, their music was on display. So that is kind of fear that I think the kind of social design, the kind of action or the implementation of policies, that can be very challenging. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I'm requesting to Dhruv, sir, please continue in conversation and give your some input for that.
No, I agree to what Prabhakar is saying. That's why I hinted at that you have to revisit the design always. And the revisiting is only possible by the process what you call in shorthand as politics. It's not a negative thing. You have to politicize the matter. You have to bring forth all the lacunas which is present in the implementation of a particular policy, and you have to see to it that it should not get reduced to tokenism, right? The point is that there are many novel concepts. Doesn't matter from where it comes to, but where it leads to is more important. And where it leads to depends on the process in which it is carried through. The process by which it is carried through, or the process which is refined gradually to attain those. For example, very simple, because he reminded of Orissa and the tribal art. Now, these tribal graffitis and arts have been exhibited. That is very fine. That is one aspect of representation of the region. Uh, it serves some purpose in the sense that people come to know that this is roughly the region where you have a tribal population with an affiliation of particular kind of art. But then why not have a institution of why not have an institution that would foster and preserve that art in that region? That becomes the second step. And then the third step would be, why not that institution be deployed to promote that art? Right? So from a level of policy or from a particular level of presence, we can graduate to a level of policy, and from a policy level we can further get into implementation, and from an implementation process we can realize certain goals, for which at each of these levels we indulge into various strategies of social design. That's why I said there is no fixed prescription for it. This design would be strategized and re-strategized in the process of attaining certain aims. And certain aims can be only achieved if certain questions are allowed to be raised. And for certain questions to be allowed to be raised, your presence is very important. If you are not present, then you forget about those questions. You see, if there are, as Prabhakar said initially, if there are disabled students, and more so vocal and articulate disabled students, then in all likelihood, the college would invest some money in getting them some basic facilities vis-a-vis their disability. But if there is no presence of disability on the campus, then given our Indian scenario and setup, it is very unlikely that by itself, in the social design or in the strategy, in strategizing that social design, that concern would automatically come in. I don't think that practically that happens. I think more often it doesn't happen than it happens. So it is something for which we should be always debating and talking about. You see, for me, the measure of the health of a particular social gathering or an organization is how much people debate about the concerns on everyday level. This may appear to an European mind and to an European ear somewhat disturbing, because it is not that neat and sanitized space where things were formulated and then implemented in a very clinical manner. Yeah, we have to re-strategize every day. And that is part of our existence. And that has to be part and parcel of our strategy. And this everyday experience would inform our social design. And in that process, as I said, if the realization of that design gets little delayed, so it be. Because in my frank opinion, then chances of getting it realized would be more than otherwise. I'm very clear about it. By you have made a particular Aadhaar card, you went to the bank to open the account. You have that Aadhaar card. You are told this applies for an individual, so much so for a community, so much so for a group. Right? So inputs for re-strategizing and redesigning even at the cost that it apparently appears to be creating some sort of cacophony or some sort of non-sanitized and non what to say non-civil uncivil space. Most of our institutions bear this mark, and for me as a student of social science and history, that cacophony reminds me that things are possible. You go to any court of any district town, you go to any magistrate's office in any district town, you go to any hospital in any district town, you go to any bus stop in any district town or a small railway station in any district town, you would find two, three things common all over the country. There would be touts, Suvidha Sulk, and the things can be circuited, short circuited, and the presence of all these things reminds me that the state is being negotiated and renegotiated every day. You should not read it just as a blatant sign of corruption. It has to be refined, but keeping this factor in mind that it is also a way of strategy, it is also a way of social design. Right? And we face this every day. How many cards you would carry, driving license, this license, that license? Anywhere you can be stopped and asked, you lack this particular thing in your pocket, so chalo 5,000 rupees nikalo. Right? So you have to redesign there your strategy. You have to make your presence felt that I am a university teacher. My name is Professor Prabhakar and I am from this. You see, my college is so near. Ah, you have to get away. So you are, in a way, you are negotiating that corruption from the organized corruption from the state. So for me, social design is a everyday technology, everyday lived experience. It's an everyday resistance. It's something like our bread and butter. Every day we have to think of it. Right? So I think the parameters of history, the parameters of sociology, I'm very sorry I'm saying this. Swapnil may get angry because the parameters of social understanding, the categories of social understanding are very different in Indian scenario than what it is in the barcoded European textbooks. They're useful, but then they have to be used with a certain social strategy and design in mind. I hope I am able to. I'm not fantasizing the crudities of or the fault lines of India. I'm not celebrating them, but I am seeing the element of negotiation within them and the possibility of strategizing within them. And unless you see those elements and connect them, I don't think any social design would be fruitful or productive. That's it. Manish ji,
Add something, sir.
please.
जो
Yeah,
भी
sir,
आपने
please.
बोला, आई थिंक एवरीवन वुड एग्री विद यू. जस्ट अ पॉइंट कि जो आपने जैसे बोला कि सोशल डिजाइन इज समथिंग नॉट टू बी kept in certain rigid categories. I fully agree with you, because it has to be renegotiated almost daily. Talking about, for example, Nalsa judgment, which came in 2014, and it gave legal recognition to the third gender and gave them equal fundamental rights. So ऐसा नहीं था कि उस recognition से पहले transgenders exist नहीं कर रहे थे. So the social design was not there कि उनको recognize कर पाते. But with the coming of Nalsa judgment 2014, they were actually recognized as equal part of our society. So as you said correctly कि social design हर दिन चेंज हो रही है और हर दिन चेंज नहीं होगी तो इट विल बिकम ऑब्सोलीट एंड इट विल नॉट बी हेल्पफुल फॉर अस टू प्रोग्रेस एज अ सोसाइटी. सो जो भी चीज़ें हैं जिसका ऑब्वियसली अगर हम लोग कोई चीज़ रिकॉग्नाइज नहीं कर रहे दैट डजंट मीन कि वो चीज़ एग्जिस्ट नहीं करती है. तो सोशल डिज़ाइन हैज़ टू बी रीनेगोशिएटेड ऑन डेली बेसिस सो एज टू बी मोर इंक्लूसिव. दैट इज व्हाट आई वांटेड टू से.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Thank you, all of you. Now I'm coming on to my last point, and it is related with all of them, not only for the designers, but the policymakers and anyone who is contributing to the society. It means everyone. And what are the challenges and opportunities for designers who work in this area? And the meaning of designers is everyone. Maybe the policymakers are the best designers, the politicians, the thought process, the academicians, the thinkers, lots of people who involved in the development of the society in different type of era. And right now in the contemporary time from the last 8 to 9 years, as to my understanding and finding, one of the best examples for how to reinvent our social structure and social design. So now my question is all of you, maybe in continuous from one by one. What are the challenges and opportunities for designers who work in this area? And designers, including all of you. Anyone can.
Okay, so I would start.
Please.
As you talked about challenges and opportunities, दोनों ही equal हैं because challenges इस सेंस में है कि we are dealing with a society जिनके अपने preconceived notions हैं, बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं जो जिस तरीके से सोसाइटी में लोग सोशलाइज हो चुके हैं. तो चैलेंजेस ये हैं कि उनका माइंड सेट, फॉर एग्जाम्पल द एग्जिस्टेंस ऑफ पेट्रियार्कल माइंड सेट, इसको चैलेंज करना या इसके अलावा लोगों को नई चीज़ सिखाना थोड़ा डिफ़िकल्ट है बट इम्पॉसिबल नहीं है. तो चैलेंजेस ये हैं कि जो सोसाइटी ऑलरेडी जिस तरीके से जिस ट्रेंड में चल रही है उसको नई चीज़ सिखाने में प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, नो डाउट. अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ भी यही है कि दैट वी आर डीलिंग विद ह्यूमन सोसाइटी, तो उसमें कुछ रिजिड नहीं है. वी कैन ट्रेन देम, वी कैन री सोशलाइज देम, वी कैन आस्क देम टू learn, relearn, and unlearn certain things that they have learned, and we can actually reframe policies. We can reframe the planning, the strategies. Again, the social design can also be reframed as a part of the society where we want to address different issues, and we can overcome these challenges which exist in our society because of certain kind of mindset. It is there because of the religious reasons, or the caste background, or the class background, or the gender background, or ethnic background, or whatever the reason may be. So these challenges are there, no doubt, but these can be addressed because we are again dealing with the society where we can always relearn and unlearn certain things, and we can overcome these challenges.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Please, Professor, if possible.
Dhruv sir raised his.
No. You please continue.
Okay. I think just before I talked about how a social design can be reduced to mere tokenism, so that can be a challenge, and I think what Dr. Dhruv also said is very interesting, and how every day there is an opportunity for negotiating and a social design to do and undo and redo. So those are the opportunities. Otherwise, I think any social design can get outdated. So for me, I think Swachhata Abhiyan social design has failed, and we have to reinvent, and it's such a fantastic idea definitely. But I think unless we reinvent and redo, re-strategize, I think it would just get stagnant and the policy would fail. And I think me as an academician, I think I also am learning to be a social designer and participating and engaging the students. As Swapnil also rightly said, we engage, we come into the classroom with our own preconceived ideas about society, our family, and gender, and caste, and many other things, marriage and everything, everything. So, but it is a good time to engage with the students in through several, questions and negotiating, and so that is how. And I'm so happy that at the end of the day, at least some students, come out to be very, conscious, and they do unlearn and learn certain things. So may not be in a big way of, strategizing, but definitely in their individual life and their family life. And if they enter into some public sphere, definitely their influence could be a bigger way. So that happiness is there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now, Dhruv sir and Priyanka ma'am for your final remarks.
I again give the floor to Priyanka ji. She can. Please go ahead.
हम आप हम आपको सुनेंगे पहले ध्रुव सर.
भाई बात यह है कि मेरा तो जो कहना था वो हम उसी पे कायम हैं. I think that the more informal spaces remain intact, the better for us. Because we are a young country, I mean to say, I'm being told continuously that youngsters are a big chunk. So I presume that the more juvenile, in a positive sense, not in negative sense, they would be the more experimenting, they would be the more talkative, they would be the more non-conformist, they would be. The informal space would be then the seat of continuously innovative social designs. After all, everyone has a role in it. A cartoonist has a role. You see, with the death of newspaper and with the advent of social media, R.K. Lakshman is not seen on social media. A simple cartoon could have explained many fault lines in one snapshot. With your selfie, the photographer is gone. So you may self indulge in selfie, but the eye of the photographer is missing to see some uncanny truth. The poet is gone, and our visual art professor Saab is condemned to somehow live within his means, because otherwise his students would be creating all sorts of graffiti on the wall, right? It was very natural. So the artist is now on the website, is not on the walls. And websites are invariably commercial websites where we go to buy. There is no space to relish without buying. informal space. Can you hear?
Yes,
आप सुन
sir.
पा
Yes.
रहे हैं? फॉर्मल स्पेस बढ़ता जा रहा है, अर्बन स्पेस फॉर्मल होता जा रहा है, रूरल स्पेस भी फॉर्मल होता जा रहा है, यूनिवर्सिटी स्पेस भी फॉर्मल होता है. ये तो प्रोसेस चल रहा है. दिस इज गोइंग ऑन. So you have to keep every day resting some or injecting some informality within the formal space. है ना? तो this needs a social consciousness of a very, very different kind. This needs a social consciousness beyond our APIs and beyond our general structural demands. I still feel that we should converse with the students. You know, one of my teachers, when I was a student, knew so many things about salt. It was not a chemistry that we used to be baffled. So I used to ask him, "इतना आपको किसने बता दिया? ये कहाँ आपने पढ़ा है?" So he gave me a very interesting answer. He was taught in his olden days by inorganic chemistry. अभी भी is a textbook. He was his teacher in some Calcutta University College. Now, whenever he started his chapter on salt, he would start with a long analysis of salt satyagraha. And that my teacher told me that he was much informed than any historian on salt satyagraha, on the types of salt, types of taxes, literature on it, etc., etc. Now, we have become too formal. I think that by conscious effort in these formal times, we have to imbibe some level of informality or retain, if not imbibe. You cannot imbibe informality. I'm wrong. Angrezi is very terrible. We can retain some amount of informality which is within us so that we converse. तो आप क्लास में पूछ लीजिए कि आज का फलाने में जो कार्टून है वो कैसा लगा, वो किस चीज़ पे था. तो यहाँ से सोशियोलॉजी भी शुरू हो सकती है, हिस्ट्री भी शुरू हो सकता है, पॉलिटिकल साइंस भी शुरू हो सकता है, साइंस भी शुरू हो सकता है, और डिज़ाइन तो शुरू ही हो जाता है वहाँ से. तो अनलेस वी रिटेन दिस, एंड आई वांट टू थैंक आवर होस्ट फॉर दिस, बिकॉज यहाँ तो सब टेढ़े मेढ़े लोग हैं. कोई सोशियोलॉजिस्ट है, कोई ये है, कोई पॉलिटिकल साइंटिस्ट है, कोई लिटरेचर का आदमी है. तो अनलेस द पोएट, द पॉलिटिशियन, द पेंटर, द कार्टूनिस्ट are allowed to converse in an informal manner, and this may include the category of students and teachers. These are categories in themselves. They are very fluid categories. Unless the informality of a formal space is guarded consciously, I don't think that in Indian scenario any strategizing of social design would work. This is the summum bonum of what I want to say, right? That also includes, deconstructing your own discipline off and on always. Admitting कि भाई हिस्ट्री में तो देखिए ये सब पॉसिबल नहीं है, तो थोड़ा अब जो पॉसिबल नहीं तो थोड़ा वो पोएट की बात सुन लेते हैं, है ना. फिर थोड़ी देर आप बताइए कि पोएट्री में तो ये पॉसिबल है, लेकिन देखिए हिस्ट्री में तो ये पॉसिबल नहीं है, तो थोड़ा मेरी बात भी सुन लीजिए, है ना. ये जो स्टूडेंट से डायलॉग है, दिस डायलॉग आई थिंक समवेयर stands snapped today. I'm not being pessimistic. And if we can revive this, then that informal space will get some oxygen. And revisiting of social design and strategizing would then be possible. In a very, very colloquial manner, I think I have tried to hint at what I think is both a matter of serious thought and practice. क्यों सर, आप सहमत हैं?
बिल्कुल सर,
सहमत हैं?
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, आपको सारी बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
तो मेरा यही कहना है सर। इसलिए आप जब इनफॉर्मली कुछ करते हैं तो आप कहते हैं तो मैं मान लेता हूँ हमेशा, क्योंकि ये जरूरी है। तो ये बात हम स्टूडेंट्स
बहुत सारी बातें मैं इनफॉर्मली ही कहता हूँ
सर,
कि आप
ये
लोगों का बचपन और बड़े भाई होने का एहसास है।
ये बहुत जरूरी है। तो मेरा ये मानना है कि जैसे जैसे फॉर्मेलिटी का आतंक बढ़ रहा है, वैसे वैसे थोड़ा इनफॉर्मल एक्टिविटी बढ़ाती रहनी चाहिए हम लोगों को फॉर्मल स्पेस के विद इन, एंड दिस इज क्वाइट पॉसिबल। इज अ वेरी पॉजिटिव एंड पॉसिबल स्ट्रेटजी। तो मैं इसी स्ट्रेटजी को प्रपोज कर रहा हूँ। मैं यकीन भी करता हूँ।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। क्योंकि मुझे लगता है कि हमारा काफी विश्वविद्यालय इस मामले में हम लोगों को बहुत सारी सहूलियत देता है कि हम बड़े इनफॉर्मल होकर लोगों के साथ जाके अपने फॉर्मल काम करवा लेते हैं। इन सब में मुझे लगता है कि हमारा जो एक बनारस का अपना एक बनारसीपन कल्चर है, या जो हम आके ढल जाते हैं यहाँ पर, और जो हम अपने आसपास, जैसे आप सीनियर लोगों को देखते हैं अपने आसपास, मतलब मैं जितने लोगों के सामने बैठा हूँ उसमें एक दो से मैं फेस टू फेस भी नहीं मिला, फोन से ही बात किया, जैसे स्वप्निल मैम, प्रभुकर मैम। लेकिन पहली बार बात करने के बाद लगा ही नहीं, हो सकता है वो मेरे बोलने में वैसा हो, उनको लगता हो कि भाई बड़े अपने जैसा आदमी है। यह आदमी टिपिकली समझ भी जाता है भाई यूपी का आदमी है, बनारसी, चलो जो होगा सब, वो बनारसी मस्त वाला आदमी है, तो इसलिए भी बोल देता है। आप प्रियंका झा मैम, मतलब जिस तरीके की स्कॉलर है, मुझे उनसे पहले उनसे बात करने में थोड़ा सा हिचक लगती थी, लेकिन एक दो बार के कन्वर्सेशन के बाद लगा कि नहीं, सब अपने ही इस क्षेत्र के हैं। तो फिर बड़ा वो रहेगा कि जब भी कुछ बात कहिए किसी से भी तो सब लोग कर सकते हैं। तो मुझे लगता है ये जो हमारे यूनिवर्सिटी का एक पूरा सोशल स्ट्रक्चर है, वो बहुत बढ़िया सोशल डिजाइन से बना हुआ है, और ये मतलब पिछले 100 साल से चला आ रहा है। हम सब इसके सहभागी रहे। हाँ, हो सकता है कुछ कम हो गया हो, जैसे वो गुरु शिष्य परंपरा का थोड़ा सा कम है कि क्वार्टर्स वगैरह और उस तरीके का जो एक एटमॉस्फियर है, बहुत सारी चीजें, लेकिन वो बढ़ा है। तो मैं अब मैम से भी फाइनल रिमार्क्स चाहूंगा इस बारे में कि अगर डिजाइनर, जिसमें सब लोग आते हैं जो इस पूरे सोसाइटी को एनरिच कर रहे हैं, उनके लिए क्या चैलेंजेस और अपॉर्चुनिटीज?
मैं ध्रुव सर से एकदम सहमत हूँ। मुझे लगता है कि जो मेरा तरीका रहा है वो मैं खुश हूँ कि जो ध्रुव सर बात कह रहे हैं वो तरीका रहा है, तो सही रास्ते पे हूँ घुसपैठी बनने का, टू इनफिल्ट्रेट। तो एक तरीके से एक बड़ा स्ट्रक्चरल तरीके से, फॉर्मल तरीके से हमको कुछ चीजें पढ़ानी पड़ती हैं, हम पढ़ाते हैं, हम सिलेबस से बंधे हुए हैं। बट मैंने उसमें कुछ चीजें बदलने की कोशिश की और उसने बड़ा मदद किया मेरे को। और अलग अलग यूनिवर्सिटीज में पढ़ाया, मगर यहाँ आने के बाद एक अलग मुझे लगा कि नहीं, यहाँ पे एक नया तरीका ढूंढना पड़ेगा कि कहीं ना कहीं इस शहर की तरह ये विश्वविद्यालय भी है, दो जगह है, ट्रेडिशन में भी है, हम लोग आधुनिक भी हैं, हम कहीं हैं बीच में। अब उस फ्रेमवर्क में आप बड़े फॉर्मल ट्रेंड तरीके से अगर किसी बदलाव की उम्मीद करेंगे तो बड़ा ही नकारात्मक रहेगा, मुझे ऐसा लगता है। जैसे एक छोटा सा एग्जांपल देना चाहूंगी, मेरे को पढ़ाना होता है बीए और एमए में पॉलिटिकल थॉट का कोर्स, इंडियन पॉलिटिकल थॉट का कोर्स। तो एक जो मैं जो वो पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ प्रेजेंस की बात कर रही थी, प्रभाकर सर, ध्रुव सर और स्वप्निल जी, कि एक तरीके से हम लोगों को पाठ्यक्रम दिया हुआ है। अब मैं उसमें कोशिश कर रही हूँ कि काफी महिला चिंतकों को भी लाऊं। तो फॉर्मली तो नहीं कर सकती हूँ, बोर्ड ऑफ स्टडीज होना है, ये होना है, वो होना है, मगर धीरे धीरे मैंने अपने सिलेबस में इनको लाना शुरू कर दिया है डायलॉग के रूप में। जैसे अगर तिलक को पढ़ाती हूँ तो साथ में तिलक का वार्तालाप, एक नोशनल वार्तालाप मैं करवाती हूँ रमाबाई के साथ। जब गांधी की बात आती है तो उनका वार्तालाप करवाती हूँ अंबेडकर से, अंबेडकर का वार्तालाप करवाती हूँ पेरियार से और लोहिया से। तो मैंने ये चीज देखा कि जब आप ये थोड़े क्रिएटिव तरीके से एक कोर्स को पढ़ाते हैं तो उसका रिसेप्शन बहुत अच्छा होता है, एक्साइटमेंट होती है। और बच्चे जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं, बच्चे तो इन्फेंटिलाइज नहीं करूंगी, जो हमारे स्टूडेंट्स हैं जो जिज्ञासु लोग हैं वो फिर ढूंढते भी हैं और ऐसे लोगों को, ऐसे चिंतकों को, ऐसे थिंकर्स को जिनको उस तरीके का अटेंशन नहीं मिला है। और दूसरी चीज मैं जैसे आज मैकियावेली पढ़ा रही थी, प्रिंस पढ़ा रही थी, तो काफी कॉमन जो हमारे आसपास की चीजें जो चल रही हैं, ध्रुव सर, I've been trying to bring the everydayness in the class by starting the day, by starting the conversation over certain events, contemporary events, जिसमें मुझे लगता है कि मैकियावेली still is very very helpful to draw those parallels, to bring the everydayness, to bring the university politics, university issues, national politics, state politics, and you just feel कि ये जो exercise हो जाता है creative engagement का, it not only makes them excited, but it also helps them to go back and read these. आप एक riddle छोड़ दीजिए, एक puzzle छोड़ दीजिए, और reception बहुत अच्छा रहा है। और लास्ट चीज जो कोलोकियल वाली बात है, उतनी भोजपुरी आती नहीं है मेरे को, समझने लगी हूँ अब 3 साल में, मगर बीच बीच में लगता है कि जब अटेंशन नहीं है या बोर हो रहे हैं तो एक दो वर्ड छोड़ देते हैं जो उस सिचुएशन को वो करता है। सो हाउ द लैंग्वेज, लाइक द एवरीडे लैंग्वेज और द टर्म्स दैट वी यूज इज सच एन इंटरेस्टिंग वे ऑफ मेकिंग देम एंगेज्ड। और मैं अंत में ये बात करना चाहूंगी, और मनीष सर आपको कंग्रेचुलेट करूंगी कि ये जो स्पेस है ना, ये जो हमारा राउंड टेबल है, ये जो ऐसे प्लेटफॉर्म है, फॉर्मल है, इनफॉर्मल है, जो भी है, हम लोगों को डिसिप्लिन को साथ में लाना है। ये जो हम लोगों ने अपने आप को कंपार्टमेंटलाइज कर लिया है, उसको हमको खत्म करना पड़ेगा। हम लोगों को एक साथ बात करनी पड़ेगी, पढ़ाना पड़ेगा। हम अपने स्टूडेंट्स को विजुअल आर्ट्स में भेजेंगे, क्योंकि आर्ट कितना पॉलिटिकल है भाई, उसको हम एक अलग संकाय के रूप में रखेंगे। सोशल साइंस वालों को जाना चाहिए, बाकी साइंस वालों को आना चाहिए हमारे पास। हम जो ये कोर्सेज पढ़ाते हैं, एंसिलरी के कोर्सेज पढ़ाते हैं, चाहे हम गांधी जी को पढ़ा रहे हैं या हम बाबा साहेब को पढ़ा रहे हैं, कुछ ऐसे कोर्सेज होने चाहिए, ध्रुव सर, प्रभाकर सर, स्वप्निल जी, मनीष सर, जो थोड़े यूनिवर्सल होने चाहिए। यूनिवर्सल इन द सेंस कि हम, ताकि आपस में भी बातचीत हो। और ये जो अड्डे रहे हैं, मेरी जो ज्यादा मतलब मेरा जो असली ट्रेनिंग हुआ है वो चाय के अड्डों पे हुआ है, ढाबों पे हुआ है। रात में हमारे यूनिवर्सिटी में, जिस यूनिवर्सिटी से मैं पढ़ी हूँ, वहां पे रात में एक टॉक होती थी। जो भी टीचर लोग रहते थे कैंपस में, आके कोई भी मुद्दा उठा, उस पे वो आके अपनी बात रखते थे। तो असली मतलब पढ़ाई यूनिवर्सिटी के क्लासरूम्स में भी होनी चाहिए और क्लासरूम्स के बाहर भी होनी चाहिए। मैं हमेशा बच्चों को ये बात, स्टूडेंट्स को ये बात बोलती हूँ कि ये जो दीवार है ना बीएचयू की, ये इस दीवार के अंदर हम जिस तरीके से सोचते हैं वो थोड़ा अलग होना चाहिए दीवार के बाहर जिस तरीके से सोचते हैं हम, स्पेशली ऑन वेरी जटिल एंड वेरी कंटेंशियस इश्यूज। तो आई थिंक मैं बस यही सबमिशन रखना चाहूंगी, completely agreeing with all the other panelists who so brilliantly argued how we need to bring the everydayness, the creative, the inquisitive, and the dissenting self in the classrooms. That is how I see my role as a social designer. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, and thank you all of you for the wonderful inputs. मैंने लास्ट ईयर एक वर्कशॉप कराई थी सोशल डिजाइन के ऊपर, जिसमें मैंने बहुत सारे एक्सपर्ट डिफरेंट डोमेन से रखे थे आउटसाइड फ्रॉम द बीएचयू। लेकिन मैं प्रॉमिस कर रहा हूँ इस बार, अभी मैं मई जून में एक ऑनलाइन कम हाइब्रिड मोड में एक बड़ी वर्कशॉप करा रहा हूँ, और उसमें मैं पूरा ट्राई करूंगा कि किसी भी तरीके से मैं 30-35 डिफरेंट डिपार्टमेंट्स को, जिनको मैं जानता या नहीं भी जानता हूँ, उन लोगों को कैसे यहाँ इनकॉर्पोरेट कराऊं, और इसी इशू को लेके बस सही टाइप की कुछ बातें हो, बहुत फॉर्मल ना हो, बड़ा बुकिश नॉलेज ना हो, क्योंकि मैं उससे भी थोड़ा मतलब, क्योंकि मैं प्रैक्टिकल फील्ड का आदमी, इसलिए मुझे उससे डिफर करना पड़ता है, क्योंकि प्रैक्टिकल आज के समय में है। तो थोड़ा सा कुछ उस तरीके की बातें जरूर करेंगे। और आपने बड़ी अच्छी बातें कही कि जो हमारी जो ऑनलाइन या क्लासेस हैं, जो क्लास का स्ट्रक्चर पूरा बना हुआ है, वो बहुत ज्यादा हमको प्रभावित करता है। बड़ी बंद, क्योंकि हम बंद कमरे में बैठते हैं तो सूझ भी तुरंत बंद ही हो जाती है, इसमें हम आप कुछ कर नहीं सकते हैं। इसी के लिए अभी देखिए एक हमने पहल शुरू की है, बहुत अच्छी विश्वविद्यालय ने एक फोटोग्राफी क्लब बना है, ऑब्सक्यूरा द आर्ट ऑफ फोटोग्राफी क्लब इन बीएचयू। तो उसका सबसे बड़ा मकसद क्या है कि फोटोग्राफी सीखने के लिए हम लोग हर हफ्ते बाहर जाते हैं, घूमते फिरते हैं और वहां जाके सीखते हैं, क्योंकि ये ऐसी सीख है कि जो कमरे में बैठ के सिखाई नहीं जा सकती। कोई ग्लूकॉन डी हमने घोला, हमारे जो ये practical असर भले होगा, तो ये जो हमने लाइफ में हम ज्यादा अच्छे से सीखेंगे, फिर आपकी बातें भी सुनेंगे। तो ऐसे टीचर के होते काम अपने ऐसे
मनीष साहब, आपका आवाज सही नहीं आ रहा है।
उसके बाद मुझे लगता है कि नेटवर्क का और सिग्नल को बहुत अच्छे से अपनी
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, all of
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Dhruv
sir.
Saab. And I couldn't recognize you. Eh? We were,
That is how you see. This is
we
a
were in
city
the
of
same
Babas, you
hostel.
know.
But the same hostel.
Good luck to all of
Priyanka,
you.
were you also there in JNU?
I was in CPS. My master's is 6 to 8. When were you in?
I see.
When were you in JNU too?
Yeah. 1997. I
Oh,
joined JNU.
which center?
English.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
He was in literature, why?
Literature.
Acha.
Literature.
English literature, what?